Carroll, actually, he's the executive director of the Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR, Houston, Texas, and he began actually his civil rights activism at 16 as president of the NAACP Youth Council in his hometown of Gary, Indiana. Prior to Carroll's arrival to Houston office in June 2010, he served on the CAIR, Texas from 2004 to 2006, and the executive committee as board president in 2007. He was appointed as executive director in June 2007. He has served on several boards, including the North Texas Islamic Council, NTIC, Masjid al-Islam, Dallas, the Islamic Medieval Studies Group, the Make-A-Wish Foundation of North Texas, the National Bone Marrows Committee entitled African Americans Uniting for Life, AAUL. So mashallah, he's been very involved in the community for a long time. So the advisory committee of the Greater Dallas as well, Chamber of Commerce, and he was a founding member and chair of Humanitarian Day event for 5 years. So together with the board and staff of CAIR, Texas in Houston, and the support of the Greater Houston community, Brother Carroll is helping to develop and execute strategies that assure justice and civil rights for Muslims in the Greater Houston community. So the talk tonight, inshallah, is going to be about the rights and responsibilities of American Muslims, but I think also of Muslims in America as well. So inshallah, we're going to have 40 to 45 minutes lecture, followed by 10 to 15 minutes Q&A session. We have pizza in the lobby for brothers and also for the sister side. Please feel free to bring the pizza inside the masjid. There are plates, so please use them. The sisters also, they can come to the other side of the masjid so they can see better the slides of Brother Carroll. And with that being said, I give the floor to Brother Carroll to start the lecture.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalat wassalat ajma'in wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Assalamu alaikum. I'm so thankful to be here, and I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will shower His blessings on our gathering and guide our words and things that we say. I'm dealing with something that's very important for the Muslim community. We've entitled it Knowing Your Rights and Responsibilities as an American Muslim, because they both go together. They have a symbiotic relationship. But before we start, I want to just share who we are, because I'm finding as I go around that people don't really know who CAIR is or what we do. So the question is, what is the Council on American Islamic Relations? Well, we're defined as our 20-year history. We were founded in 1994 in Washington, D.C. That's where our headquarters is. We have around 35 chapters nationwide, and the diversity in boards and staff and hundreds of volunteers. If you ever get a chance to visit our office in D.C., we're like 2 blocks from Capitol Hill. We can actually look out our window and see the Capitol. And when we go up there to do work, outreach to our government officials, we actually walk to Capitol Hill to do that. Our vision is to be a leading advocate for justice and mutual understanding, and our mission to enhance understanding of Islam, encourage dialogue, protect civil liberties, empower American Muslims, and build coalitions that promote justice and mutual understanding. Our CAIR Texas chapter was formed in 2001. We are now 12 years old. We have 8 board members, and we have 3 staff in our office, full-time staff, and a ton of volunteers and interns. So if any of you all want to do a summer internship, we have any students, let them know that they can intern with us. We do legal interns, people go, there's 2L, second year of law school, and we do college interns and many other fields. Our major areas of focus are education and outreach, media relations, political empowerment, and civil rights and advocacy. We are a civil rights advocacy organization our main goal is to protect the civil rights and to advocate for American Muslims. But in doing so, we actually advocate for Americans in general, because we protect everyone's rights and we don't discriminate. In education outreach, we're doing, like what I'm doing today, is outreach. We call it inreach because I've come to our community. So we do a lot of educational programs in terms of school bullying, know your rights. We actually reach out to many campuses. The ones on the bottom, you see we were at UT. Hope you don't get upset over there because I know I'm at A&M now. But and we do other types of outreach. This is a kaleidoscope of the, this year, we were at the MLK parade where we actually initiated 325 Muslims to march in the parade. What does that do for us as a community? Well, it helps to normalize our community, and it allows people to see us as just regular American citizens who care about civil rights in this country and care about the legacy of those folks who have gone before us. So our outreach is varied. In media relations, you'll usually see us responding on television to various media issues, the various issues in the media. For example, we have a press conference scheduled this week for the Boko Haram issue where they kidnapped these 200 or 300 girls. And we partnered with our coalition members and many of the interfaith community to come and stand with us in solidarity as we ask for that to be rectified. But besides that, we actually do some proactive work. We're not just responding to things that happen, but we partnered this year with the Andalusia Center, and we're developing a series of humanizing PSAs. And those PSAs are going live on our website, but they will be live on television, hopefully, inshallah, by the end of this month. And what the PSAs do, we've got Muslims who are doing good work in the community. We highlight those individuals, whether they be doctors, whether they be, we have one brother that's an imam, a reformed person from the prisons. We have a sister who is working with NASA, training astronauts. And what we do is we just try to find a variety of people in the community, which isn't hard to do, and highlight them in this video. And we don't say this is a Muslim, but they can extrapolate from the video that these are Muslims doing good works in the community, and it helps to promote our image as a Muslim community. So we're trying to be more proactive in terms of what we do. Okay, there we go. One of the most important things that we do is building coalitions. Over the last year, we built at least 13, we built or joined 13 coalitions. Probably the most notable of those is our Civil Rights Coalition, where we invited many civil rights groups, i.e. NAACP, LULAC, ACLU, and I know I'm using acronyms, but those are some of the coalition members. We had a coalition conference. We talked about, when we were developing the program, we talked about those things that are important in the community, not just in the Muslim community, but in the community in general. And we dealt with immigration reform. We talked about Islamophobia and our privacy rights. And that was, we had at least 400 attendees to that program. Very successful. Our keynote was Amy Goodman. Right here at Texas A&M, we were invited to be part of a closed conference of academics, religious leaders, and who else did we have? We had 3 sets. It was academics, religious, and activists. And we met at A&M right here with Dr. Fagan. I don't know if you all know him or not, but he was one of the leaders of that conference. And we talked about how to end racism in America. Of course, that's $1 million question. But nevertheless, building coalitions is critical to our community, critical to the work that we do. In terms of political empowerment, we actually give workshops on civic engagement. We talk about what are some of the current issues of the time. This is a photo from January of last year. We had Texas Muslim Capital Day, where we had well over 300 Muslims from around the state, from Tyler, Dallas, San Antonio. I don't know how many people came from Bryan College Station, but we had Muslims there from all over the state. We met, we instructed people on how to talk to their representatives, what are some of the issues, and we visited representatives that day, and we had a program as well. We also went there with our coalition partners And it's important for us to note that we'll be going back again in 2015. There were 4 anti-foreign law, better known as anti-Sharia bills, on the table when we went to Austin. We started working early, educating our representatives. We started in June of 2012, and we went to all the offices that we could. I think we visited at least 20 or so, 25 offices in the Houston area. And we encouraged our partners in other parts of the state to go and visit their representatives. We took information, very basic information about what Sharia is, what it isn't, and we encouraged them not to pass those type of frivolous laws because they mean little. But what they do is they throw a cloud over the Muslim community and make us look suspect. So when you do go to visit your representatives or other officials, people are looking at you funny because they don't trust you. So what we did was we started an education campaign to reach out to those representatives. And then in January, we took 300 or so Muslims to the state capitol, and we'll be doing that again in 2015 because the Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst had said that he was going to let those bills get to the floor. Last year, we defeated all of those bills. None of those bills got to the floor, and none of them passed in Texas. So, inshallah, we're going to do the same thing in January of this coming year. So, civil rights is the meat and potatoes of our work. We give workshops on that, like this one, understanding civil rights, engaging law enforcement, immigration law, workplace rights, civic participation, and we actually take cases. This year, I think it was September, we put out this publication, Legislating Fear, which talks about Islamophobia and its impact on the United States. And I have a copy out of it on the table outside if you want to take a look at it. So the question is, why is Islamophobia a problem? One reason, it creates misunderstanding. The misunderstanding turns to fear. The fear turns to hate. And it's subject to be violent. And it's a cycle. It affects the mental health of Muslims. We had a sister in our office who was our former outreach coordinator, who was a licensed social worker. She actually did a presentation to the National Association of Social Workers that detailed some of the impact that Islamophobia, anti-Muslim sentiment has on the mental health of Muslims. It divides and weakens the society and the country because the country is divided, and it increases our discrimination complaints. Some of the trends that we've seen in our work is that we've seen an increase of employment discrimination complaints. Probably 40 to 45% of what we do is dealing with people who are complaining about being discriminated on the job, either being outright called names, not allowed to pray, not allowed to wear hijab, etc. Bullying of Muslim students, not only by other students, but by teachers. We had one case where a father of a 9th grader came in really upset. A teacher had written his daughter a full-page letter telling her to leave Islam, marry a Christian, etc. And if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe somebody would be that bold as to do that to a 9th grade, a 14-year-old girl. And he came to our office to talk about that. And we have several instances where teachers are calling. The day that they killed Osama bin Laden, one of the teachers told a student, I guess you're sad today because your cousin is dead or something like that. And these are I'm talking about 8th grade students. I'm not talking about even teenagers. And so this is really serious. One of the more disturbing trends we've seen is undergraduate and postgraduate, specifically people working on their PhDs and on their medical degrees. We had at least 3 or 4 cases where in their last year, either the dean or someone that's in a high rank of the department tried to oust these students from the program. Not for any good reason. The student hadn't committed any infractions on campus. They were outstanding students. I'm talking about with a 3.75 on a 4-point scale. They had no incidents, nothing, and all of a sudden they're being ousted out of their programs. One went as far as to get a psychiatrist. One major university went as far as to get a psychiatrist to do a profile on the student to tell him in his last year of medical school that he was unsuited for pharmacology. That was his focus. But they also told him that although he's unsuitable for pharmacology, he could go into any other field of study. In other words, he could be an internist, he could be a gynecologist, a pediatrician, but he wasn't suited for pharmacology, and he had been an outstanding student for the last 3 years. And this just came up. So those are things that we saw that are kind of disturbing. We haven't had one in the last few months, but we've had at least 3 or 4 of those. Not 4, better than that, better than 4. Of course, incidents of employees who converted to Islam now having problems on their job once they convert. And then also denial of detained or incarcerated Muslims their lawful accommodations. We've had many of those. Most of them are coming from for-profit prisons where they won't allow them to have their prayer rugs or their Qurans, or they won't give them halal meals, which is part of the Bureau of Prisons mandate. So we're steadily working to remedy those issues. So in terms of categories, we took 66 cases last year. 40% of those were employment related, 25 were government, mostly law enforcement, federal law enforcement, the FBI. 15% were from the prisons, and 20% was spread among the public square and through schools and other places. So what is the state of Islamophobia in America? Well, in 2011 and 12, our study showed that it's at 5.9 on a 10-point scale. It's down, actually, from 6.4 from 2010. Why is it down? Because in 2010, we had the Ground Zero Mosque, and that was what ramped it up. And then you saw a series of protests across the nation in Rhode Island, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Florida, Illinois, California, etc., about people, Muslims wanting to have mosque up. In fact, in Tennessee now, they're fighting about having a Muslim cemetery. So they've won the battle with the mosque, but now we're moving because they want to have a cemetery. Now that's an issue. So we see that these things are continuing. What we also found that the U.S. Islamophobia Network consists of like 69 groups. 37 of those are the inner core and 32 are the outer core. Now those inner core groups are the ones that actually set the tone. They actually have the information or the misinformation. And the 32 outer core groups are just like the cheerleaders. They're the ones that take this message to the grassroots and tell people about it. And according to our research, these groups over 3 years poured almost $120 million into revenue of saying bad things about Muslims. And the question is, how much money are the Muslims putting into countering that? That's where we're falling. We're not even on the ballpark. They have a lot of support, and they're going around and they're pouring this money into this, and this helps to finance these people. Now, another thing that we saw, and this is where we get the anti-foreign law bills. It's coming from one person who actually wrote the template for that. His name is David Yerushalmi. He's an attorney in New York who has this organization called American Laws for American Courts, better known as ALAC. He's helped to sponsor this anti-foreign law campaign or anti-Sharia. When they found out that you can't say anti-Sharia because it's religious, they changed it to anti-foreign law. So they've been manufacturing words to try to push this thing through. When it first happened, our counterpart in Oklahoma, Carroll, Oklahoma, Munir Awad, and our national office sued the state of Oklahoma because that bill passed in Oklahoma a couple of years ago. It passed by 75% of the vote in Oklahoma. But he sued them, and it stopped it. They put a halt to it. They tried to come back, and Judge Vicki LaGrange wouldn't hear it. It's the federal judge there, and she actually outlawed it and also maintained that it was against a religious group. And so therefore it died. But they've been successful in at least 6 or so states, Kansas being one of them. Florida just defeated it again, and Florida is really one of those more vitriolic environments that they've had a lot of problems. And these bills are being pushed through ACT in the Eagle Forum, which we had to confront right here in Texas. So there have been 78 bills introduced in 29 states, and that's very critical for us to know that these bills really have no place. They really don't do a whole lot, but they make the community look bad. Now, what they've done is they've introduced the bill in terms of family law. In other words, they're under the guise that they're protecting women and children from abuse, and they say that Sharia abuses women and children and so forth and so on. Just total bogus misinformation. So it's important for us to know our rights. So where are our rights protected? Well, first, the Constitution protects our rights. What does it say? Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peacefully assemble, etc. Now, around 3 or 4 years ago, I got a call from Fox News in San Diego. There was a magnet school there where it predominantly had a lot of Muslim kids. And those kids wanted to, of course, stay in school. You know, most kids, Muslims kids in school, if they're practicing, they pray at least once a day, the door prayer. And so there was a big hoopla over it, that a lot of people were saying, well, the Muslims are getting to do something other people don't get to do, that they're mixing church and state and all this type of stuff. And so they called me to ask me, what did I think about it? And they said, well, don't you think that they're mixing church and state? I said, absolutely not. The Constitution protects children who want to pray in school. If the child says, I need to make my prayer, then the school is obligated to make reasonable accommodations for that child. Then they asked me, they said, well, Mr. Carroll, suppose the Christians want to pray. I said, well, I hope they do. I said, I can't believe that you all are fighting over kids praying. You ought to be wanting all of them to pray as bad as some of the schools are. So, you know, a lot of misguided information, and people don't understand. Prayer wasn't taken out of school. The thing that was taken out was the administrators, the teachers, or myself coming into the school and trying to lead prayer. But the child, if they're trained to pray, they have a perfect legal constitutional right to pray in school. And the school should make reasonable accommodations for that. So there's 2 prongs of religious liberty. One, free to practice our faith or none at all. The right to believe or not. The right to express or manifest our beliefs in our practices. Even in the public square, we have the right to practice our faith in the public square. Even and especially if you're a member of a minority faith, because this Constitution was designed to protect minorities, because the founding fathers had come over from England and they had suffered because of religious oppression there. So that's where that came from. Freedom from government intrusion into your faith. And the government cannot endorse or sponsor. No state-sponsored religion. That's what it means by free, no church and state relationship. And nor can it restrict. So Texas goes even further. It says government may not burden free exercise unless it has compelling interest, meaning something's crooked is going on, or and that it uses the least restrictive means to deal with it. Now, did I turn back to the wrong one? Oh yeah, where are your civil rights protected? Well, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 applies to private action. Title VII of the Civil Rights of 1964 deals with employment discrimination, and Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 64 deals with public accommodation. Why does it deal with these issues? And I think for people, many of us may not know the history, but before, those things weren't protected, so you could be discriminated. African Americans in particular, and many others, were discriminated against, where you could go to college, you could have a master's in education, and you couldn't get a job teaching in the school. Most of the early people, my parents' age, that I knew that had went to college, got their master's in education or what have you, ended up being janitors in the colleges. They just didn't allow that to happen. Public accommodation. You couldn't go to a restaurant and eat with everyone else. They'd hand you your food out the back door, or not at all. You know, you were not served. And so those things came about because of that situation. So your rights as a citizen or non-resident in public places are still protected. If you're a non-resident, if you're not a citizen, you're still protected under the laws of this country. You know, a lot of people don't know that. So they accept some of these things. People that we talk to have accepted because they think, well, I'm not a citizen, so, you know, I'm not a member. But it protects people who live here in this country. You cannot be denied service in any place of business that's open to the general public. You cannot be denied based on religion, race, color, or national origin. So if somebody tells you, I don't want no Muslims in here, that's a problem. And we should deal with them. First Amendment, freedom of expression, speech, press, assembly, redress, meaning to contest things that happen. Freedom of speech gives you the ability to voice your opinions. Generally, government cannot regulate the content, but they can regulate the time and place of it. And the content may be regulated in certain circumstances. You know, if you notice, when we have war, things change. That it's not the same as in peacetime. If we're at war and you go out and say, well, I hate America, I support the Taliban, you got a problem. That's going to be problematic. You're free to say it, but you're also going to have problems that come with it. So there are some parts of speech that are sometimes regulated, and those may include defamation, obscenity, pornography, etc., especially child pornography. Also, in the Civil Rights Act, you cannot be denied public employment based on association. So this case was upheld in '67 because, remember, the communist scare, everybody was talking about communists, and a lot of people who claimed to be part of the Communist Party were denied employment, public employment. So you can't be denied if by being a member of the masjid, for example. But now, if you're a member of Al-Qaeda, that's a whole different story, because that's a group that's been outlawed. They're a group that's is known as a terrorist organization in this country. So you cannot be associated with it because it's criminal. But other than that, being a member of the masjid, being a member of ISNA, ICNA, CARE, MAS, etc., those things are legitimate, and no one can deny you employment because of your involvement with it and let you know it. And we'll talk about that also. Free exercise clause, religious beliefs are absolutely protected. Conduct in no furtherance of those beliefs may be regulated, i.e. polygamy in this country is against the law. So you know, you can't legally do a child labor and other things. There are some parts of that will stop, that they will regulate. The Fourth Amendment, which deals with search and seizure, that Muslims, especially now, a lot of times are being searched, or they have warrants. They'll come to your house, but no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause. It needs to have a reason. In other words, if I've been identified as somebody who robbed a bank, or that has something shady going on, then that should be stated specifically. And if someone comes to your home with a search warrant, law enforcement come with a search warrant, they can't look for a stolen television in your dresser drawer. Does that make sense? Everybody, does that make sense? Yeah, they can't come to your home. If they're looking for a stolen television, it's not in your dresser. So they can't go through your dresser drawers, your desk drawers, they might go out to your garage, but they usually specify on the warrant where they're supposed to be searching. And you should ask for ID and everything else. So, It prevents the government from intruding upon your person, home, business, or property without a valid search warrant, a valid arrest warrant, and a belief rising to the level of probable cause. In other words, you've been identified as somebody, a person of interest. They saw you running from the bank when it got robbed. So you may have been running to get away from the robbers, but because they saw you running, they might be suspicious. Under the Patriot Act, however, these things they lowered the bar. So they can search your home now and not tell you. They can collect information about what you read, study, purchase, look at your finances, take away property without a hearing, monitor your emails and internet use, spy on innocent Americans. We've had a lot of issue with the NSA spying and the New York Police Department. Put immigrants in jail indefinitely. We've seen people, in fact, I get lots of calls from the prisons of people who have been detained because they've come out of status. All right, and when they come out of status, when your status, like if you're here on an H-1 visa, whatever, it expires, you're not working or you're out of school or what have you, they can deport you. But I know people who've been in prison for no other thing than being out of status for at least 3 or 4 years. I found this out in doing the work with some of the for-profit prisons. Why are they doing that? Because the prison is operating on finances. The financial, they get government money for keeping those beds full. So they had this guy in prison for 4 years and all his visa expired. And they finally just, I think it was 2012, sent him back to Egypt or where he was from. But it was just outrageous things. And they can wiretap you under a warrant that doesn't even have your name on it. So these are things that this is why we fought against the Patriot Act for so many years. We still fight against it. Okay, so you need to know your rights if law enforcement contacts you. And this is a real critical piece because I'm always having Muslims say to me, I have nothing to hide, so I'm going to talk to them. And I say to them, don't ever do that. Don't talk to them. Whether you have something to hide or not is irrelevant. Here's the deal. If you say the FBI comes to your home and you decide, I have nothing to hide, come on in, let's talk. They don't have to tell you the truth, but you have to tell them the truth. If anything that you say can be interpreted as a lie, you can go to jail for that. They could say you lied by omission. They can say that you outright lied. You could misspeak. You could make a mistake, and you're just sitting there thinking, oh, well, we're just talking. He just wants to know. I'm showing him I'm a good, honest American citizen. And so we have nothing against the FBI doing their job, and they're going to do what they do. But our job is to let you know that if you're going to speak to them, you make sure you have an attorney. And if you don't, and if you say you don't want to speak to them, that's the end of it, because it's voluntary. You don't have to speak to them ever. Even if you get arrested, you don't have to speak to them. All right. So you need to know that, not because we think you're doing something, but because don't put yourself in a precarious situation. Because this can happen, and it has happened. That it can be interpreted as a lie. You cannot lie to a federal officer. It is against the law. All right. So just so you know, they might approach you at any time or any place. They may give you a number of reasons. They outreach to the Muslim community. Just some routine questions. Doing an investigation on somebody else. They need your help. Your name come up during the course of an investigation. You're not in any trouble. Well, if you're not in trouble, then why are you here? I've been living here all my life. They never come to my house. All right. There's no reason for them to come to your house if you're not doing anything. There's no reason for them to come there unless you was in the company of somebody, maybe or something. But we call those fishing expeditions, where they just do sweeps of the community. It may happen at certain times. Only they know why they do it. But nevertheless, you have the right to say, I appreciate everything that you all do. And here, can I have your card? If I decide I want to speak to you, I will have my attorney contact you. Thank you for coming by and keep up the good work. End of story. Does that make sense? All right, because you don't need to put yourself in a position where you might be in trouble. So, you have a legal right to have a lawyer present. No warrant, no requirement to let them in your house. In fact, I wouldn't even let them in. I'd step outside the door and say, hi, how are you? Have a nice, be very pleasant, be cordial, but tell them thank you, but no thank you. Okay? Never lie. Again, you have the right to have an interpreter. So for those persons who may not be real fluent in English or what have you, you have a right to have an interpreter there. If you don't know the language, you can put yourself at risk. All right, so if, you know, just all of these things come up in the midst of it, and it's really, and if you haven't been harassed, once you say no and they follow you to your job and all this, then call us, because they should. Once you say, I don't want to talk to you all, thank you, and that should be the end of it. But I know people who haven't done what we said. I've had several cases like that. I gave the same talk, and the brother, he let him in anyway, and it's like a puppy, a stray puppy that you feed. They just keep coming back. They don't stop. You think, oh, I told them everything. They still coming back. So it's not good. And then they start going to your job. One case, the brother was the chief financial officer for a major corporation. Can you imagine what it looks like for the FBI to come to your job as the chief financial officer for an organization and to question you? The first time, it raised his eyebrows. But the second time they came, now his bosses want to know what's going on because he's the controller for their money. So it looks really bad for that to happen. So this is not saying now, let me tell you when you cooperate with the FBI. If you know somebody's going to do something really bad, you call the FBI, you call the police, you call the sheriff, you call the constable, etc. That is when we're supposed to actually work with them. And so you don't keep those things. This is just for the everyday stuff. But if you know something bad is going on, you know somebody's going to blow something up, you know somebody's going to kill somebody, somebody has already said they're going to do something, then that's when you call them. But other than that, be very, very careful. And if you're going to speak to them, make sure you have an attorney. So if you're contacted by the Department of Homeland Security, which is kind of rare, but that includes U.S. Citizenship and Immigration, USCIS, the Bureau of Customs and Border Patrol, which you'll probably see at the airport, or if you go into any of the border states, you may see them there. The Bureau of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they are all federal offices. The same rules apply. So again, you have a right to an attorney, never sign anything without reading it. Federal law requires you carry your registration documents with you at all times. So if you're not a citizen yet and you have papers, or even if you are a citizen, you should have ID on you. And you should not be asked improper questions. And this happens more often than we give it credit for. Your religious or political beliefs are off the table. So somebody said, well, what mosque do you go to? That's not, what does that have to do with the investigation? Nothing. What is your favorite verse of the Quran? Who is your imam? What do you think about Israel and Palestine? All those questions have nothing to do with and they are your personal, private beliefs or political positions. You don't have to express to anybody. I know an imam that they questioned for over a couple hours, and they asked all of those questions. I know for a fact they asked them. And we sent letters to Customs Border Patrol about that. Did you have questions, sir?
Yeah, are they allowed to ask those at the airport?
At the airport, they'll ask you a lot of things, but you don't have to answer them. Yeah, they'll ask you. Now, at the airport, and I'm going to talk about this. Well, let me see if it's on the next slide. No, that's not it. But I will be talking about it, but I'm going to just say, at the airport, you're in a precarious situation if you're coming back in the country. Because if you're coming back in the country and you go through customs and they say, we need to talk to you, you're not really in the country yet. So you don't have the same rights. But you can assert that if they start questioning you like that, said, I'd like to see your supervisor. Is that, everybody got it? So when they started, what religion, what made you become a Muslim? What kind of Muslim are you? Are you Shia, Ahmadi? Are you Sunni? Are you this? You don't have to answer those questions. If you answer them, you can do it if you want to, but it'll just keep going. And the person I'm talking about that they asked all those questions, he said, well, I thought if I just told them everything, they would stop. They didn't. It just got worse. and it was improper. And we meet with CBP, we meet with USCIS, we meet with the FBI, we have a round table every quarter to discuss with them issues that we're seeing from our community. So when I hear this kind of stuff, I not only talk to them, but I send a letter to the director of CBP at the airport or what have you, and I ask them to tell us what happened, because we've heard that this has happened. And they called me back and they said, you tell them to make sure they see the commander on duty if that ever happens again. So that's them telling me to tell you that. If that ever happens, if they're asking you these kind of questions, you let us know, and you don't even have to let us know right away. You can at the airport, you say, I want to see your supervisor. I appreciate it. I'll answer any question about where I've been, etc. But you don't have to answer those kind of questions. So it gets to the level of profiling is what it does. I want to talk about your rights as an employee, because we have lots of issues now. Most 40 or 45% of the cases we take are about people who are claiming discrimination on the job, Muslims who are actually and are being discriminated against. We've won several cases about this. Number one, federal law makes it illegal for an employer to discriminate based on race, gender, religion, national origin, etc. That's Title 7 of the 64 Civil Rights Act. Increasing claims, no surprise. And this just gives you an idea. In 2000, there were 1,939 charges. But in 2010, there were almost 4,000 charges. And I talked to the EEOC persons here, and I haven't gotten the information about 2013 yet. But I suspect that it's gotten higher, because that's one of the places that people are going to discriminate, especially in hard times. When the economy's tough, then they start looking at who they're going to throw off the ship. These religious charges, approximately 4% of all the EEOC charges filed. Your rights as an employee are the right to reasonable religious accommodation, which includes wearing a beard, hijab, prayer breaks, attending Jummah prayers on Friday. Now, having said that, I've seen some Muslims who make it a chore to help them. All right, what I mean is, okay, it's one thing to have a right, and it's another thing on how you approach your employer. For example, when I worked in corporate America, I didn't even tell them I was going to pray. I just said, Friday is my day of meditation. If I can have that day off, I'll work any other day and all days, during the week. No problem, Mustafaa. They gave me that off 98% of the time. They just gave me the whole day off. Now, what did I do? I made good on my promise. I said, okay, if I get that day off, then I'll be available to you whenever. And I was working in the medical field then. So my point is that all of that stuff is good. You have a right to do it. There are certain jobs that you can't wear a beard. If you're working for a chemical company or plant, for safety issues, you can't wear a beard. If you're working for the Texas Department of Corrections in the prisons, they have an issue with safety also, because you have to be able to put a mask on or they have to identify you. So we've been through that. But most all other jobs, with few exceptions, you should be able to wear your beard and you should be able to wear a hijab. There are certain special cases where that cannot happen, and that's for safety concerns. Attending Jummah prayers. If you're a school teacher in the public school system, you may not be able to get Fridays off to come to Jummah. Why? Because if you have to get Fridays off to come to Jummah, they got to have a substitute every week that you're gone. They'd have to get one. That is not a reasonable accommodation. So those are some of the few cases where that might not work. But in most other places, they even have, I know in many parts of the medical center in Houston and also in Dallas, they have actually a prayer room for Muslims in the medical center, in some of the hospitals. And a lot of times, it's just how we handle it. It's not that, yeah, this is our right, but it's how we handle it and how we go about getting those things happening. Fairness in hiring, firing, promotions, a non-hostile work environment. There was a case, we had a major government contractor who was discriminating against a lead engineer who was a Muslim. They put him in a real small cubby hole. He was supposed to have a corner office. They just treated him really bad. We won the case, and it was big. So those things, you know, anytime, or they make jokes about calling him Osama and raghead and all these other things, those things are not funny. And the other thing that we ask people to do is when they start calling names or they treat you something, don't wait until it gets so bad that you just can't take it anymore. Go right away and make it known to your supervisor or their supervisor, and write it and send it to HR and tell them, look, so-and-so called me this name on this date, and make you a copy and keep a copy, a personal copy for yourself. Why am I saying that? Because when we take cases and the person is saying that it got to a point where they just couldn't take it no more. So we say, okay, what did they do? Well, they called me this and they called me that and they called my cousin was Osama bin Laden, and just a whole number of things. But they never wrote it, they never reported it, and so now it's hard to defend them because now it's just your word against their word. All right, but if it's been made known to your supervisor, you have a duty to let them rectify this. So if somebody, I remember when I was managing people, I would never let my supervisors beat up on my staff. So it's important for you to make sure that people know that somebody is mistreating you. You can't just let that go or think it'll go away. You know, you have to say something, and you can do it in writing. I advise that it be done in writing. Don't say I told my supervisor. No, I send him here's a copy, send him a copy or her a copy, and I send a copy to Human Resources. So that way, when something goes down, you put them in a position where they have to go do something, and you've also set the tone that if this happens again, then you have some legs to stand on. And I hate to say that, but this is we've seen so many cases, and it's so depressing for me to get a case that we can't win or we can't help. All right, so make sure that and there's a law against retaliation too. So if you tell somebody and then they come back and say, well, we're going to fire you, all right, then that's retaliation. And the EEOC, even though they're flooded with a lot of work, they're the best ones to report it to. And we usually advise people in the workplace to report to the EEOC all these things, because they can do what nobody else can do. They can do what lawyers can do. They can go into the company, they can say, let me see all your records of all the Muslims you have here. Let me see your records of the other people in the same position. Let me see what you've done for all of them. They can do that without having to go through a whole lot. They don't have to ask. They can just walk in and do it. Say, they can flash their badge, I'm with the EEOC, bam, and it's done. So it's important for us to understand that there's law against retaliation. And I know that's kind of tough because when you have a job, you're trying to take care of your family. People, you know, this is a big issue. Your rights as an employer regarding your immigration status, your employer must be able to prove that you're legally authorized. So they have to get the information for that. There's no way around it. An employer cannot single you out to require employment verification information. In other words, you don't look like a citizen. Let me see your stuff. They can't do that. It has to be done for everybody. You know, it's done for me. Everywhere I've been to work, they ask me, let me see your ID. Are you a citizen? All those things have to be verified. So that's not unfair. Neither can an employer require that a U.S. citizen or generally give those U.S. citizens preference in hiring. They have to hire everybody according to the same rules. So a U.S. citizen doesn't get preference if they're not qualified for the position. They have to vet out the same thing. Now they'll try it, but this is illegal for them to do. It is illegal for an employer to discriminate against legal aliens merely because they look like non-citizens. What does that look like? Okay, so those are just some of the things about that. The request for accommodation, employee seeking the accommodation must make the employer aware of it, the need for the accommodation, and that it is being requested due to a conflict between religion and work. Some people want to get a job in a bar and they say, well, I don't want to serve alcohol. Don't get a job in a bar. That's what they do. All right? I mean, it's just that simple. We need to, you know, we can't go there and tell the people, well, I can't serve it. Well, we know the Quran says those who sell it, serve it, take it, they're all the same. So our thing is, you know, when I first became a Muslim, I was working in a restaurant, and I thought, okay, I didn't know, nobody had ever told me, I don't drink, I never have drank, so it's okay to serve drinks. I talked to the imam, he said, no, those who sell it, serve it, take it, all are the same. And I had to get another job. You know, and that was when I was in college. So, you know, we have to make those kinds of decisions. Don't work in a strip club if it's against your religion. That doesn't make sense. You know, don't go get a job over in a strip club and then say, oh, stock for Allah. Yeah, you knew it was stock for Allah when you went in there. All right, so we have to do things that it's a common sense. The employee must explain the religious nature of the belief or practice. Sometimes people don't believe, you know, there are many of us that believe it's far not to have a beard, and we have to have it. That's legitimate. There are scholars and others that say that's part of religion. There are also scholars that say that niqab is it. We defend women who cover their faces. You know, I had a case in Dallas where the sisters were out at a fruit market, and the guy goes and writes a sign and put no face coverings. Yeah, we wrote him, you can't do that. Well, I don't know if they're gonna rob me. What if a person robbed the fruit market? You know, come on. So you know, these are our rights. I mean, whether we agree with it, we would defend people's right for religion. Now, if you come up with something crazy, no. But these things are in the scope of Islam. This is not something somebody contrived. These are things that we've seen for years. When faced with discrimination on the job, remain calm. Report the discriminating action in writing. Critical piece, in writing. Don't talk. Don't waste your breath. Write it and copy it and make sure you have a copy of it. Send an email. Why? Email is great because it has the time, the date, the person, everything. So it's a document of it. It's even better than a letter because they say, I didn't get that. But you can, you know, if an email came to your email address, at least, you know, people know it was sent to your email address and it has the time and everything on it. So make sure that you do that and keep you a private copy because once you leave or if something happens, they're not going to help you. You know, you're not going to, well, I forgot to get my documents where you always discriminate. It's not going to happen. They're not going to give it to you. So you make sure you have your copy. All right? And inform the offending party that you believe his or her actions are discriminatory. Let them know. Put them on notice. All right? Ask to be transferred to another department job site. Ask for mediation. This is something that the EEOC would do naturally. Do not sign any documents or resign without an attorney's. In fact, don't resign. Make them terminate you. Do not resign. Don't let them run you off because once you resign, it's over. All right? For the most part. In most cases, if a person resigns and leaves a job, then the onus is on them. You know, if they're going to terminate you, let them go on through the termination. I know it's painful. I know it's a problem, but go ahead. It's better to do that. Even though you can come back and still get some resolve. Because you can say they ran me off of there. They had a hostile work environment. They treated me so bad, I just couldn't take it. You know, I know people who have health problems because of how they get treated on the job. You know, that's serious because you're there 8 hours a day and you want to be there in peace. You don't want to be there, you know, fighting with folks all day. Okay, so don't sign and then contact us and we'll advise you most of the time to actually see the EEOC. Now, I'm going to run through this because we're running a little short on time, but when you're at the airport, as I said before, you don't have as many rights if you're coming back in the country. If you're in the country traveling domestically, it's a little bit different. But coming back in the country, if they call you through customs, you haven't gotten in the country yet until they say, okay, you can go. Then once you get, you know, back, then you're in the country. So there's things that they may do that they shouldn't be doing in that. And I've said before, if that happens to you, you make sure you ask for a supervisor. And you do it right then. You say, and don't get upset. Don't be angry. Just say, sir, ma'am, I appreciate what you're doing, but can I talk to your supervisor? Because I find these questions a little bit offensive. And they have to do it.
What about sometimes they give you like airports and like in the room for specific investigation for like
Detention.
What's that now?
What if they detain you there?
for a few hours?
Well, they can detain you for hours. I mean, you know, when that happens, also make us aware if it's, you know, sometimes it's, I know people that's been there 3, 4, 5 hours. That's crazy. You know, unless something is going on.
Is that legal?
Huh?
Is that legal?
Yeah, it's legal. There are things I mean, it's legal, it's not nice. But it's legal. They can hold you there. But now, you can also call for a supervisor. When that hour or two, and sometimes people have their families. They have their elderly parents there, or they have their young children. They're holding them there after a long trip back here. That's inhuman. You know, so if that happens, and there's no real reason for it, let a supervisor know. Say, I want to see a supervisor. I've been here for 2, 3 hours. That doesn't make sense. Yes, sir.
So how do you know what kind of questions are they allowed or not allowed?
Well, the questions that I've just said that they shouldn't be asking you is, like what mosque you go to, what does the imam, who's your imam, what's your favorite verse in the Quran, what do you think about jihad, what do you think about the Palestinian-Israeli issue? Those questions have nothing to do with anything. Those are just, I'm going to set you up as a profile. Those kind of questions that talk about your political views, your religious views, your religious life, that's none of their business.
Can you
All right.
refuse to answer?
What's that?
Can you refuse to?
Yes. You can say, I'm sorry. I say, but I don't see the validity of those questions. You can do it in a nice way. But nice or not, you cannot do it. You can just say, I'm sorry, but can I see your supervisor? Because I don't see the validity of these questions. Yeah. You don't feel like you just, they might keep you there longer, but that's an issue too. But they shouldn't be asking those questions. I've spoken with them myself, and they told me they were going to, the individual, they can't tell me exactly what they're going to do, but trust me, Mr. Carroll, we're going to retrain them. Yes, sir. Did you have it?
Yeah, I've been like detained every time since 2006. And what happens is actually even the guy who's processing, he says, I can't let you go. I have to make some phone calls, and until he gets the okay from whoever he's calling, he cannot let me in the country, even though I'm a U.S. citizen.
No, I don't even get that. We've actually been fighting cases like that. There's some U.S. citizens born and raised here that they've been just put them on the no-fly list when they're out of the country. Can't get back in. So those things, we actually engaged in a lawsuit, I'm trying to remember which one of our chapters, it might have been California, where we sued to get one with sister off of the no-fly list. They won't tell you why, what happened. That's not fair. But they also suggest that you fill out TRIP.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't do anything.
One of the CBP guys said to me that this is not fair, that they're doing this to you. This is the guy who's...
Yeah, he's talking to
He
you.
says you should go and complain in Austin and your congressman, and I even know
Yeah.
the congressman, etc.
Which congressman was it?
The guy who was before our representative.
Okay.
Now it's the new one.
Yeah.
The old one.
I would still do that because the congressman has them,
Basically,
but some of these guys are not
can't do
coming in.
anything. That's the bottom line. I even got a letter from DHS.
Wow.
Now I have a letter from DHS.
Send me some information.
He says,
and
they
we
say,
need
"No,
to-
we have to do our job, so we cannot do anything."
Well, we'll see. Yeah, it's ugly. It's real ugly now. So, but they can stop you like that, and it's legal. It's just ugly when they do it. So, anyway, I want to get right through this. So I think I've talked about most of this, what they can do and can't do in the airport. So I'm not going to. Now, nobody's going to tell you I'm targeting you because you look like a Muslim, or I'm targeting because you Pakistani, or you from Egypt, or whatever. They're not going to tell you that. So don't claim discrimination unless you've got a good reason or a good case. Because people do that. They just do that to me because I'm black. Okay. Now prove it. It's one thing for you to feel it, and it's another thing to prove it. And that's why it's so important to be astute and paying attention. They can't handcuff or strip search you either. So that's off the table. So you just need to assert your rights and make sure you speak to a supervisor. And I think we talked about most of these things. So I'm going to go ahead and take some questions because we're on the last. I think it's 9. I hate to go. Are we okay?
Yes.
Okay, yes, 9:33.
It's not
Are we okay? Okay. But I think I've covered most of this here. Now, they do try, they will, and they say they cannot confiscate. They can confiscate your electronic items. One of our attorneys that usually comes with me when we're doing this, John Floyd, he does a lot of great work. I talked to him today, but he just could not make it. But one of the things that he said he does is he sends his computer, he ships it ahead of time, or he packs it so it goes ahead of time. So that if he comes back, you know, nobody's taking his computer with all this important work information or what have you. But they can confiscate those things and look through it. When they do, I have a video. I don't know if we have time to see it, but I brought one if we want to show it, how you can act when you're being engaged with law enforcement. It's a very good video, but it's put out by Muslim advocates. So if we have time or if you want to see it, we can show it later.
How much time the video is?
The video is very short. It's probably, I'm thinking it's less than 10 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes, 10 or 15. But I mean, if we can do it another time. It doesn't have to happen. I just brought it because I thought you know, seeing it happen and me telling you about it is two different things. But it's something that you need to understand about what they can. I've already said that. Document anyone. Okay. Yeah, now, document anyone who stops, arrests, or searches you. You know, make sure you know who they are. You do not have to answer personal questions not related to travel. Like the kind of examples I showed you or talked about just a minute ago. Get an inventory sheet saying exactly what was taken by whom and when you will get them back. All right? If you feel you were discriminated against, make complaints to the relevant agencies. Remember, your rights are severely limited in border searches before being readmitted to the U.S. And I've said that also. And call us. Because we meet with these organizations, these entities every quarter, and we will contact them if there's an issue going on. And if we see fit, we consult our attorneys. And you know, we're subject to do some litigation, but you know, usually it's very difficult without having some really strong evidence. All right. Same thing with airline passengers. So, okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Going back to the topic of the niqab, I was at Montana State University, and there was an issue there regarding, you know, the niqab, because there was a Saudi lady taking English class, and she was putting the niqab, but then she had an issue with the teacher, female teacher. She kind of like wanted her to take off the niqab so they communicate better. And this issue kind of went out to the international office, and they were asking us like, how would they approach this issue? So, you know, you understand the situation where the teacher needs to communicate, and usually, you know, in a class, if a regular, you know, just a non-Muslim student putting like some mask, they might ask them to take it off.
Yeah.
So is it like who has the right here? The teacher asking the Muslim lady to take off the niqab, or the Muslim lady keeping the niqab on?
Well, you know, that's a real tough one, and it's tough for several reasons. One, they need to know who you are. That's usually the issue that comes up. As far as once they know who you are, I mean, I don't have a problem talking with someone who has the niqab on. But that's me, because I've been around Muslims for a good while now. But people who are not used to people covering their faces don't do it. I don't know that they always do it out of spite or being mean. It's uncomfortable for them because they don't do it. They don't see that happen at all. But the lady has the right to wear it, you know, but there's going to be some complications that come from it. It's even when it comes to getting a license, you know, you try to get a driver's license, you got your face covered. All right, they got to identify you. They need to know who you are to make sure that they're giving the ticket to the right person or whatever. So it presents some complications. I don't know that there's any hard and fast answers, but I do know that she has a right to wear it in the practice of faith. And if someone tells me that it keeps them closer to God, etc., then it's okay. But it does create issues. It does create some problems with indigenous population. They're just not used to that. I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, but like, okay, like they're inside a classroom, like if they're out in the street, I understand, or in a, like a shop or somewhere.
Mhm.
Like being in a classroom or, lecture. So that's kind of like made a really good kind of puzzle here. I didn't know, because, one thing is being able to identify and be able to communicate, and the other thing is, the lady has the right to put the niqab on. So and it kind of like...
It's stressful.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a really tough situation. And, I always support people's right to practice their faith. But I also tell them that we need to do it in the best possible manner. Now, I can't tell her to take it off because, that's a strong belief. That a person, and it's not that many people that do it. But those persons who do it, most of the women that I know that cover it because they believe that's what Allah wants them to do. So, it's kind of hard for you, my position is that if she says it keeps her close to God, I'm through with it. But it's going to be fraught with problems. There's so many issues in this society especially.
So in the university...
I think we've got to have, are there other questions? Because we only have 5 minutes to go. Does
sorry.
anyone else have a question? I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Yeah, you can have one-to-one afterwards, inshallah.
Yeah, I'll be here afterwards. So.
But inshallah, if you can wrap up, then...
Okay, well, if no one has any other questions, I appreciate you all having us out. We're not working for ourselves, we actually work for the community. So if there's anything that we can do to help you and help this community, educate you or whatever, we'll gladly come down and help. I have cards out here, and you can get my cards, and I'll be here after we close out so we can discuss any issues or challenges you might have. So, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for coming. And inshallah, it's a small token of appreciation for care.
Thank you.
You guys are doing a great job. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you.
Thank you.
It's just a recognition.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.